Your dinner etiquette is silently sabotaging your success, and everyone notices except you. There's one specific mistake that instantly marks you as an amateur, and you're probably doing it right now. Walking into a business dinner 5 minutes early seems smart, right? Wrong. Showing up too early puts your host in an awkward position. They're probably still fixing their tie or checking the reservation details. Arrive exactly on time or maybe 2 minutes late. It shows you respect their schedule without looking desperate. Your phone needs to disappear before you even think about sitting down. Not on silent mode, sitting pretty next to your water glass. Gone. Completely out of sight. That expensive leather bag you're carrying, it goes on the floor beside your chair or hangs on the back if there's a hook. Never, and I mean never, plop it on the table like you're claiming territory. Same rule applies to sunglasses, car keys, and that fancy watch you want everyone to notice. Here's something most people mess up without realizing it. Your hands. Before you shake hands with anyone or touch anything on that pristine table, excuse yourself to the restroom. Wash your hands properly. Not a quick rinse, but a real wash. Business dinners often involve handshakes, and nobody wants to grip palms that just handled car doors and elevator buttons. The moment you approach that table, your posture tells a story. Slouched shoulders whisper, "I don't really want to be here." A straight back and relaxed shoulders say, "I belong at this table." Keep your head up, but not tilted back like you're looking down on people. Your chin should be parallel to the floor. This isn't about being stiff. Think confident, not robotic. But here's where most people stumble. You see an empty chair and immediately claim it like you're playing musical chairs. Stop right there. Wait for your host to sit first, then follow their lead. If they gesture to a specific seat, that's your cue. At formal dinners you might find place cards that solve this puzzle for you. But even then, hover near your designated spot until the host settles in. The weird part is how these simple rules can make or break a first impression before you've said a single word. Your potential client is already forming opinions based on whether you're checking your phone or washing your hands. They notice if you're sitting like you'd rather be watching Netflix or if you carry yourself like someone who closes deals. Then there's the psychological game happening beneath the surface. When you follow these basic protocols, you're signaling that you understand hierarchy and respect social structures. Business leaders love working with people who get these unspoken rules because it suggests you'll handle other professional situations with the same awareness. Let's not forget that confidence is contagious. When you walk in with perfect timing, clean hands and proper posture, everyone at the table feels it. They start to relax because they sense you know what you're doing. Contrast that with someone who shows up flustered, dumps their belongings everywhere, and slouches into the first available chair. Which person would you rather negotiate with? Your arrival sets the tone for everything that follows. Think about it. If you can't manage to show up on time and keep your phone in your pocket, why should anyone trust you with their business? These details matter more than your sales pitch or your company's track record. People buy from people they feel comfortable with, and comfort starts with basic competence. Well, here's something that might surprise you. Studies show that people form lasting impressions within the first 7 seconds of meeting someone. 7 seconds. That's barely enough time to say hello, but it's plenty of time to notice slouched posture or a phone buzzing on the table. You can't undo that first impression, but you can absolutely nail it. The beautiful thing about mastering these fundamentals is how they become automatic. Once you've practiced arriving on time, keeping your belongings organized, and maintaining good posture, you don't have to think about them anymore. Your brain is free to focus on the actual conversation instead of wondering if you're making social mistakes. But why does timing matter so much? Because business dinners aren't just about food, they're about demonstrating reliability. When you arrive exactly when you said you would, you're proving that you do what you say you'll do. That's the foundation of every successful business relationship. Your host is watching these details more carefully than you realize. They're not just being polite when they notice you washed your hands or waited for them to sit first. They're mentally checking boxes about your professionalism and social intelligence. Once you've mastered these arrival basics, you're ready for the next challenge that trips up even experienced professionals. Because the moment you sit down, there's one simple item that can either enhance your credibility or broadcast your inexperience to everyone at the table. You've made it to your seat without tripping over anyone's purse or accidentally high-fiving the waiter. Victory. But now comes the moment that separates the dining pros from the amateurs. What to do with that cloth square sitting prettily next to your plate? Here's where most people mess up. They grab the napkin the second they sit down and shake it out like they're surrendering to the breadbasket. Wrong move. The napkin stays put until you're actually seated and settled. No exceptions. Even if you're eyeing those appetizers like a hawk. Once you're comfortable, pick up your napkin with purpose. Don't unfold it completely. That's what your grandfather did at the diner, not what you do at a proper dinner. Instead, fold it in half. The crease goes toward your waist, creating a neat little pocket that actually serves a purpose. This fold catches any crumbs or spills before they hit your lap, which is basically the napkin equivalent of having a safety net. The placement matters more than you think. Your napkin lives on your lap, not tucked into your shirt collar like you're about to demolish a lobster. It's not a bib, and you're not 5 years old. Keep it flat across your thighs, and resist the urge to twist it into origami while you wait for the soup course. But what happens when nature calls, or when you need to step away to take that urgent call from your boss? Here's the secret most people don't know. Your napkin goes on your chair, not on the table. Placing it on the table signals that you're done with the meal entirely, which sends mixed messages when your entree is still steaming on your plate. The chair placement is like putting up a "I'll be right back" sign that everyone understands. When you return, the napkin goes right back on your lap. Simple as that. No fanfare, no dramatic unfolding, just a quick, smooth transition that shows you know the rules. Then there's the end of meal protocol, which trips up even seasoned diners. You might think the meal is over when you finish your last bite, but hold that napkin. The host gets to make the final call here. Wait for them to place their napkin on the table before you do the same. It's like waiting for the teacher to dismiss class. Sure, the bell rang, but you don't just bolt for the door. When it's finally time, place your napkin loosely to the right of your plate. Don't fold it into a perfect square, or crumple it into a ball. A gentle, casual placement shows you're finished but still civilized. Think casually elegant, not origami masterpiece, or crumpled homework. Let's not forget the golden rule that seems obvious but apparently isn't: your napkin is not a tissue, ever. That expensive cloth wasn't meant to handle your seasonal allergies, or that unexpected sneeze. If you need to blow your nose, excuse yourself and head to the restroom. Your dining companions will thank you, and the restaurant's laundry service won't curse your name. The weird part is how many adults get this wrong at business dinners. They'll nail a presentation about quarterly projections but fumble with a piece of fabric. Your napkin technique might seem minor, but it's one of those details that people notice subconsciously. Get it right, and you blend seamlessly into the sophisticated dinner crowd. Get it wrong, and you're the person everyone remembers for the wrong reasons. Some napkins come with fancy napkin rings, which can throw people off their game. Don't overthink it. Slide the napkin out of the ring, set the ring aside discreetly, and proceed with your normal routine. The ring served its purpose by keeping everything tidy before you arrived. European dining might have different rules for other things, but napkin etiquette remains surprisingly consistent across cultures. Whether you're in Manhattan or Milan, these basics will serve you well. The key is developing muscle memory, so you don't have to think about it during important meals. Your napkin also serves as a subtle communication tool throughout the meal. Dabbing the corners of your mouth between courses shows attentiveness without being obvious about it. Just don't wipe your entire face like you've just finished a barbecue rib eating contest. Well, now that your napkin game is bulletproof, you're probably staring at what looks like a place setting designed by someone with too much time on their hands. All those forks, knives and mysterious extra spoons aren't there to confuse you. They're actually following a logical system that makes perfect sense once you crack the code. The moment you sit down at a formal dinner, you're facing what looks like a small army of silverware. Forks to your left, knives and spoons marching in formation to your right, glasses clustered above like sentries on duty. Your first instinct might be to grab whatever's closest, but that's exactly how you signal to everyone at the table that you have no idea what you're doing. Here's the secret that separates the pros from the amateurs. Work from the outside in, always. The utensils furthest from your plate are meant for the first course, and as each dish arrives, you move progressively inward toward your plate. This isn't some arbitrary rule invented by fancy restaurants to confuse people. It's actually logical once you understand the system. Think about it like getting dressed. You wouldn't put on your jacket before your shirt, right? Same principle applies here. The salad fork sits on the far left because salad typically comes first. The dinner fork nestles closer to your plate because it's used for the main course. Makes sense when you break it down like that. But here's where things get interesting. What happens when you encounter a table setting that looks like it was designed by someone who really loves silverware? Some formal dinners feature enough utensils to stock a small kitchen. Well, the outside-in rule still applies, but you also need to recognize that not every piece of silverware is meant for every diner. Let's decode the geography of your table setting. Forks live on the left side, period. From left to right you might find a salad fork, then a dinner fork, possibly even a fish fork if the meal includes seafood courses. Each fork has its moment to shine, and using the wrong one won't end the world, but it will definitely catch the attention of anyone who knows proper etiquette. The right side tells a different story. Knives line up with their blades facing inward toward your plate, never outward toward your dining companions. That would be considered aggressive, even threatening in some cultures. Spoons follow the knives, arranged in order of use. You might see a soup spoon on the far right, followed by a dessert spoon, or sometimes a teaspoon for coffee. Then there's the mysterious territory above your plate. Your glasses live up there, positioned above your knives. Water glass goes closest to your plate. Wine glasses fan out from there. Red wine, white wine, champagne, each gets its own specific glass, and yes, there's actually a reason beyond looking impressive. Different wines need different shapes to bring out their best flavors. The bread plate sits like a loyal companion above your forks on the left. Here's a trick that saves people from awkward moments. Make an OK sign with both hands. Your left hand forms a B for bread, your right hand forms a D for drink. This helps you remember which plate and glass belong to you when you're seated closely with other diners. But what about those mysterious extra pieces that sometimes appear? A butter knife might rest across your bread plate. Dessert utensils could be positioned above your main plate, or they might arrive with the dessert course itself. The key is not to panic when confronted with unfamiliar silverware. Watch your host, follow the outside-in rule, and remember that confidence matters more than perfection. Here's something most etiquette guides won't tell you. Even experienced diners sometimes feel overwhelmed by elaborate table settings. The difference is they don't let it show. They understand that the point isn't to memorize every possible configuration, but to grasp the underlying logic that makes the whole system work. What about utensils you don't need? If you're not eating the salad, don't touch the salad fork. If you skip the soup course, leave the soup spoon alone. Using unnecessary utensils just creates confusion and extra work for the staff clearing your table. Clean, unused utensils can be left exactly where they were placed. The weird part is how much this knowledge affects your confidence. Once you understand the pattern, even the most intimidating table setting becomes manageable. You're not guessing anymore. You're following a system that's been refined over centuries of formal dining, ready to put this knowledge to work. Because knowing where everything goes is just the beginning. Next, you'll need to master the art of introducing yourself properly to your fellow diners, and there are specific protocols that can make or break those crucial first conversations at the table. Walking into a dinner party where you don't know anyone can feel like entering a foreign country without a translator. You're scanning faces trying to figure out who's who, while simultaneously worrying about spinach in your teeth from the appetizers. Here's the thing though, most people mess up introductions not because they're shy, but because they overthink the process. First rule, always use your full name when meeting someone new at dinner. Hi, I'm Sarah might work at a coffee shop, but at a dinner table, you want hi, I'm Sarah Johnson. Why the formality? Well, dinner conversations tend to be longer than casual encounters. People will remember you better. And frankly, it shows you take the interaction seriously. Plus, if someone needs to introduce you to others later in the evening, they'll actually have your complete name to work with. Then there's the title situation. This one trips up even seasoned dinner guests. If someone has earned a title, doctor, professor, judge, use it during introductions. I'd like you to meet Dr. Patricia Williams, carries more weight than just Patricia. But here's where it gets interesting. Once the initial introduction is over, and conversation flows, you can usually drop back to first names, unless the person seems particularly formal about it. Read the room, as they say. Standing up during introductions isn't just old-fashioned politeness. It's practical psychology. When you stand, you're literally putting yourself on the same physical level as the person you're meeting. Staying seated while someone approaches creates an awkward power dynamic that nobody wants at dinner. Even if you're wedged between two chatty guests, and standing requires some maneuvering, make the effort. The person you're meeting will notice. Eye contact during introductions separates the memorable guests from the forgettable ones. Not the intense, unblinking stare that makes people uncomfortable, but genuine eye contact paired with a real smile. You know the difference. A real smile crinkles your eyes slightly. The fake dinner party smile just stretches your mouth. People can tell the difference from across a crowded table. Let's not forget about placement cards at formal events. These little folded pieces of paper aren't suggestions, they're dinner GPS. The host spent time thinking about who should sit where, considering personalities, conversation topics, and sometimes business connections. Ignoring your assigned seat and plopping down wherever you feel comfortable is like rearranging someone's chess pieces mid-game. But what happens when you arrive and there are no place cards? This is where things get more nuanced. Wait for guidance from the host, but also use common sense. Elderly guests typically get priority seating. If there's a guest of honor, don't claim the seat right next to them, unless invited. And never ever sit in the host's chair, even if it looks like the best spot at the table. The weird part about dinner introductions is how they set the tone for the entire evening. Get them right, and you're the guest people want to talk to. Mess them up, and you might spend the rest of dinner trying to recover. It's like the first impression rule multiplied by the number of courses you'll be eating together. Here's something most etiquette guides won't tell you. Sometimes you'll forget someone's name immediately after hearing it. Happens to everyone. The elegant solution: work their name into your next sentence naturally. So Michael, how do you know our host? This repetition helps cement the name in your memory and shows you were actually listening during the introduction. Handshakes during dinner introductions require special consideration too. You're at a table, possibly holding a napkin, maybe with a glass nearby. Keep handshakes brief and gentle. You're not closing a business deal, you're meeting a fellow diner. And always make sure your hands are clean and dry. Nothing kills a good first impression like a clammy handshake before the appetizer arrives. What about introducing others? Sometimes you'll find yourself in the position of making introductions between other guests. The general rule: introduce the younger person to the older person, and in professional settings, introduce the person with the lower position to the person with the higher position. But at dinner parties, these rules relax considerably. Just make sure everyone gets a proper introduction and knows how they connect to the gathering. Now that you've mastered the art of meeting people properly, you're ready for what comes next: actually sitting at the table like you belong there. Because knowing how to introduce yourself means nothing if you slouch in your chair like a teenager avoiding homework. Your posture tells a story before you even speak. Slouching in your chair whispers, "I don't want to be here," while sitting ramrod straight screams, "I'm terrified and overcompensating." Neither works in your favor. Here's what actually matters: sit with a comfortable space between your back and the chair. Not pressed against it like you're hiding, but not floating forward like you're about to bolt either. Think of it as your personal buffer zone, enough room to breathe and move naturally while still looking engaged with everyone at the table. The real challenge starts with your elbows. Every etiquette book will tell you to keep them off the table while eating, and they're right. But why? Well, it's not just some arbitrary rule from centuries past. Elbows on the table while you're actively eating creates a cramped territorial look. You're essentially building walls around your food, like a protective fortress. Plus, there's the practical issue: you risk knocking over glasses or bumping into your neighbor's space. But here's where it gets interesting. Between courses, when you're engaged in conversation and no food is present, resting your forearms lightly on the table edge is perfectly acceptable. The key word here is lightly. You're not using the table as a pillow for tired limbs. Now, what about those hands when they're not busy with utensils? In American dining style, your hands should rest in your lap when not actively holding cutlery. Simple enough, right? Well, the French have a different approach that might surprise you. In French etiquette, resting your wrists, not your full arms on the table edge, is not only acceptable, but preferred. They consider hands hidden completely under the table somewhat suspicious, like you might be up to something sneaky down there. The wrist on table technique requires finesse. Your wrists should barely kiss the table edge, with hands naturally relaxed. Think of it as the difference between a gentle handshake and a death grip. One feels confident and natural, the other makes everyone uncomfortable. Then there's the fidgeting problem that nobody talks about enough. Drumming fingers, tapping feet, playing with jewelry, adjusting your hair every 30 seconds. These unconscious habits can drive fellow diners absolutely crazy. Makes sense, right? You're trying to have a pleasant conversation while someone's creating their own percussion section with their fingernails against the water glass. The weird part is that most people don't even realize they're doing it. Nervous energy has to go somewhere, and when you're focused on making good impressions and following proper etiquette, your hands might start their own little rebellion. Awareness is your first defense here. If you know you're a fidgeter, give your hands a job. Hold your napkin loosely, or rest them gently on your lap with fingers interlaced. Let's not forget about the space you occupy at the table. Your invisible dining territory extends about 18 inches from your seat in each direction. Stay within your boundaries. Spreading out like you're claiming new land for your personal empire makes everyone else feel cramped and uncomfortable. Keep your elbows close to your sides, especially when cutting food. Nobody wants their meal interrupted by an accidental elbow to the ribs. But why does all this matter so much? Because your physical presence affects the entire table's energy. One person sitting properly and confidently can elevate the whole dining experience. Conversely, someone who's constantly shifting, fidgeting, or invading others' space can make everyone feel on edge, even if they can't pinpoint why. Here's something etiquette books rarely mention: comfort breeds confidence. If you're sitting in an awkward position because you think it looks proper, you'll end up fidgeting more, not less. Find the sweet spot where good posture feels natural rather than forced. Your shoulders should be relaxed, not pulled back like a soldier at attention. Your feet should be flat on the floor or crossed at the ankles, never wrapped around chair legs like you're climbing a tree. The hands in lap rule has one important exception worth noting. If you have a medical condition that makes certain positions uncomfortable, or if cultural background suggests different norms, adapt accordingly while maintaining the spirit of courtesy and consideration for others. The goal isn't rigid adherence to arbitrary rules, it's creating a comfortable environment where everyone can enjoy their meal without distractions. And here's the thing about building these habits: they need to feel automatic before they'll look natural. Practice at home during regular meals until proper posture and hand placement become second nature. Because nothing looks more awkward than someone obviously concentrating on remembering etiquette rules instead of enjoying their company. Your body language sets the tone for how others perceive not just your manners but your confidence and respect for the occasion. Master this foundation, and you'll find that everything else flows more naturally. Of course, sitting properly is just the beginning. Once you've established your presence at the table, you'll need to navigate the delicate art of ordering your meal without making social missteps that could derail the entire evening. You've mastered the seating arrangements and conquered the dreaded napkin placement. Your posture screams confidence, and your handshake would make a diplomat proud. But here comes the real test of your dining sophistication: ordering food without looking like a complete amateur. The menu arrives, thick as a novel, and twice as intimidating. Your server approaches with that practiced smile, pen poised like a sword. What happens next separates the dining pros from the nervous wrecks who end up ordering chicken fingers at a 5-star restaurant. First rule: never be afraid to ask for recommendations. Seriously, your server isn't judging you for not knowing what duck confit with cherry gastrique means. They're actually thrilled when someone asks, because it shows you care about making a good choice. Plus, servers know which dishes the kitchen executes best, and which ones have been sitting under heat lamps since Tuesday. Here's where most people mess up completely. They whisper their order like they're sharing state secrets, or they bark commands like they're ordering troops into battle. The sweet spot lies somewhere between these extremes. Speak clearly, make eye contact, and use those magic words your grandmother taught you: please and thank you. "I'd like the salmon, please," sounds infinitely better than "give me the fish." Your server is a human being, not a vending machine. Treat them accordingly, and watch how much smoother your entire dining experience becomes. But here's something nobody tells you about ordering. Choose dishes you can actually eat without creating a disaster zone. That spaghetti with red sauce might sound delicious, but do you really want to risk looking like a crime scene victim during your job interview lunch? Save the messy adventures for casual dinners with friends who've already seen you at your worst. The same logic applies to foods you've never encountered before. Ordering escargot might seem sophisticated until you're fumbling with tiny tongs and launching snails across the table. There's wisdom in sticking with familiar territory when the stakes are high, even if it means passing on the exotic options. Then there's the complaint trap that snares so many diners. The menu doesn't have what you want, or the prices seem outrageous, or you're convinced the restaurant down the street has better options. Keep these thoughts to yourself. Loudly criticizing the menu makes everyone at your table uncomfortable and marks you as someone who lacks basic social awareness. Your dining companions didn't choose this restaurant to hear your running commentary on their poor judgment. They want to enjoy their meal, not defend their choice of venue while you provide a detailed comparison to every other restaurant in the city. Well, here's where patience becomes your secret weapon. Once everyone has placed their orders, resist the urge to start eating the moment your plate arrives. This isn't a race, and finishing first doesn't win you any prizes except the label of that person who inhaled their food. Waiting for everyone to be served shows respect for your companions and creates a shared dining experience rather than a series of individual eating sessions. Besides, food tastes better when you're not gulping it down while others watch awkwardly from across the table. But what about those special dietary needs and restrictions? Don't suffer in silence or pretend allergies don't exist. Most restaurants can accommodate reasonable requests, but the key word is reasonable. Asking for grilled chicken instead of fried is perfectly acceptable. Demanding they recreate your grandmother's secret recipe is not. The weird part is how many people sabotage themselves by over-explaining their choices. You don't need to provide a medical history when asking for dressing on the side. A simple, "Could I get that with the sauce on the side, please?" works perfectly without turning your order into a therapy session. Let's not forget the power of decisive ordering. Servers appreciate customers who know what they want and can communicate it clearly. Hemming and hawing for 10 minutes while everyone else waits creates unnecessary tension and slows down the entire dining process. And here's a pro tip that separates experienced diners from rookies. If you're genuinely torn between two options, ask your server which one they'd recommend. They've seen both dishes come out of the kitchen countless times and know which one consistently impresses customers. Makes sense, right? Your server wants you to have a great experience because happy customers tip better and create fewer problems. They're on your team, not working against you. The art of ordering politely sets the tone for everything that follows. Get this right, and you'll coast through the rest of the meal with confidence. Mess it up, and you'll spend the evening recovering from an awkward start. Now that you've successfully navigated the ordering process without incident, there's still one crucial moment that trips up even seasoned diners. The food has arrived, everyone looks hungry, but who makes the first move? You've ordered your food politely, your napkin is perfectly positioned, and you're sitting with the confidence of someone who knows exactly what they're doing. Now comes the moment that separates dining rookies from the pros, actually starting to eat. Hold your horses there, Tiger. The biggest mistake people make, diving into their food the moment it arrives. You know that person who starts eating while everyone else is still waiting for their meals? Don't be that person. Nothing screams I have zero social awareness. Quite like watching someone shovel pasta into their mouth while you're sitting there with an empty plate, wondering if you accidentally ordered from a restaurant in another dimension. Here's the golden rule. Wait for everyone to be served before taking your first bite. Everyone means everyone, not just your immediate table mates, not just the people you like. Literally everyone at your table needs food in front of them before you start eating. Think of it as a synchronized swimming event, except with forks instead of pool noodles. But there's a sneaky exception. If you're at a large gathering and the host specifically tells everyone to start eating while the food is hot, then go ahead. The host has given you permission to break the rule. Without that explicit green light, keep your hands in your lap and practice your patience. Then there's the host signal situation. Smart diners watch the host like hawks, watch field mice. The host is your dining conductor, and they'll give subtle cues about when to begin. Sometimes it's a simple please everyone start, but often it's more subtle. They might pick up their fork first, or take that initial sip of wine. These aren't random movements, they're your starting gun. Speaking of that first sip, timing matters here too. Don't grab your water glass and start chugging the moment you sit down. Wait for a natural moment, perhaps after introductions are complete or following a toast. Makes sense, right? You wouldn't start applauding before the performance begins. Well, let's talk about the stuff already on your table. Those salt and pepper shakers might be slightly askew, the bread basket could be positioned awkwardly, and maybe that centerpiece is blocking your view of the person across from you. Here's what you don't do. Start rearranging things like you're redecorating your living room. The table setting was arranged intentionally, even if it doesn't match your personal preferences. Resist the urge to move things around. That bread basket stays where it is until someone passes it properly. Those condiments, leave them alone unless you're actually using them. The weird part is that people often fidget with table items when they're nervous, but this actually makes everyone else uncomfortable. Keep your hands busy with conversation, not with interior design. But why does all this waiting matter? Because dining etiquette isn't really about food, it's about showing respect for others and demonstrating that you understand social dynamics. When you wait for everyone to be served, you're saying we're in this experience together. When you follow the host's lead, you're showing respect for their role. When you leave the table setting alone, you're demonstrating that you can control your impulses. Let's not forget that flexibility plays a huge role here. You might walk into a dinner expecting a formal, structured experience, only to discover it's more casual than you anticipated. Maybe the host is relaxed about timing, Or perhaps it's a family-style meal where the normal rules get bent a little. Set your expectations but stay ready to adapt. The temperature factor adds another layer to consider. Some foods need to be eaten immediately, or they become unappetizing. If you're served something like soufflé or fresh fried food, and the host encourages everyone to start before it gets cold, that's a practical override of the usual waiting rule. Use common sense. Nobody wants you to suffer through lukewarm food just to follow protocol. And the weird part is, once you master this initial phase, everything else flows more smoothly. When everyone starts together, conversations develop more naturally. The meal has rhythm instead of chaos. You avoid that awkward situation where some people are halfway through their entree while others are still waiting for their salad. Here's something others won't tell you: the first few minutes of a meal set the tone for everything that follows. Start strong, start together, and start smart. The person who handles this phase well immediately signals to everyone else that they know what they're doing. Once you've got the timing down and everyone's ready to begin, you'll face your next challenge, navigating one of the most basic yet misunderstood aspects of dining etiquette. Because believe it or not, there's actually a wrong way to handle something as simple as bread and butter. You've mastered the art of sitting properly and know when to start eating. But here comes bread service, and suddenly everyone's watching. Well, not really watching, but they notice. Bread etiquette separates the polished from the amateur faster than you'd think. The golden rule hits you immediately. Always pass the bread basket to your right before taking any for yourself. Always, even if you're starving and that warm sourdough is calling your name, resist the urge to grab first. Pass it along like you're not desperately eyeing that perfect crusty roll. This simple act shows you understand the rhythm of formal dining. But here's where most people mess up completely. They treat bread like a sandwich at lunch. Wrong move. Never, and I mean never, cut bread with a knife at the dinner table. Doesn't matter if it's a thick, artisan slice or delicate dinner roll, your hands do the work here, not cutlery. Break off bite-sized pieces instead, one piece at a time. Tear it gently with your fingers, creating portions small enough to eat in 1 or 2 bites maximum. The weird part is how natural this feels once you get the hang of it, but initially your instinct screams use the knife. Then there's the butter situation, which trips up even experienced diners. Don't butter the entire piece of bread at once. That's amateur hour. Take your small torn piece, place a small amount of butter on your individual bread plate first, then butter just that one bite. Eat it, then repeat the process. Speaking of butter placement, your bread plate sits to your left above your forks. Some people panic when they can't locate it, but remember the simple trick: liquids on the right, solids on the left. Your bread plate holds both the bread and butter, keeping everything organized and preventing the dreaded whose plate is whose confusion. Let's not forget the technique for actually buttering. Use the butter knife provided, not your dinner knife. Spread gently, avoiding aggressive scraping sounds that make nearby diners cringe. The butter should glide on smoothly, creating a thin, even layer on your small piece. What about those fancy bread presentations? Restaurants love serving bread with olive oil, flavored butters, or specialty spreads. Same rules apply. Pour a small amount of oil onto your bread plate. Never dip directly into the communal bowl. Tear your bread into bite-sized pieces, then dip each piece individually. Clean, controlled, considerate. The timing matters too. Bread typically arrives early, but don't dive in immediately unless others do. Watch the table's rhythm. Sometimes bread serves as a conversation starter while you wait for appetizers. Other times it's meant to accompany the meal. Follow the lead of your host or the most formal person at the table. Here's something nobody tells you: what to do with leftover bread on your plate. Leave it there. Don't ask for a to-go container for half a dinner roll. Don't crumb it up nervously with your fingers. Just let it sit gracefully while you continue with the main course. And the weird part is how bread creates social moments. Passing the basket, offering butter, sharing recommendations about which roll looks best. These small interactions build rapport around the table, but only if you handle them smoothly. Temperature presents another challenge. Hot bread feels amazing, but it melts butter instantly, creating a potentially messy situation. Let extremely hot bread cool for 30 seconds before buttering. Your fingers will thank you, and you'll avoid butter soup on your plate. Some restaurants serve bread with multiple accompaniments: regular butter, honey butter, jam, oil, or specialty spreads. Don't sample everything like you're at a buffet. Choose 1 or 2 options maximum, and stick with them throughout the bread course. The napkin comes in handy here too. Bread can be crumbly, especially artisan varieties with seeds or rough crusts. Keep your napkin ready for discreet cleanup, but don't make a production of wiping crumbs. A gentle dab handles most situations perfectly. What happens when someone asks you to pass the butter? Hand over the entire butter dish, not just a portion you've served onto your plate. Use the serving utensil provided, never your personal knife. These details matter more than most people realize. The key insight: bread service tests your patience and social awareness simultaneously. You're hungry, the bread smells incredible, but you must navigate the social choreography first. Pass, wait, tear, butter, eat, repeat as needed. But here's what really matters. Once you master bread etiquette, you'll notice how it sets the tone for the entire meal. Handle it well, and everything else flows more smoothly. Mess it up, and you're playing catch-up on manners for the rest of dinner. Now that you've conquered bread service like a pro, those utensils sitting beside your plate are practically begging for attention. The real test of dining sophistication is about to begin. Your fork isn't a shovel, and your knife isn't a sword. Yet somehow, watching people eat, you'd think cutlery came with zero instructions and unlimited creative freedom. The truth: how you handle your utensils sends signals about you before you even take a bite. First rule, that'll save you from looking like a caveman: never hold utensils in a fist. Your fork and knife aren't hammers. Hold them like you actually went to school. The handle should rest in your palm while your thumb and index finger guide the action near the top. Think of it like holding a pencil, but with more responsibility and less math homework. Here's where things get interesting. There are actually two proper ways to use utensils, and both are correct depending on where you learned them. The American style involves cutting your food with the fork in your left hand and knife in your right, then switching the fork to your right hand to eat. The continental or European style keeps the fork in your left hand throughout the entire process. Neither is wrong, but pick one and stick with it during the meal. The weird part is how many people mix both styles randomly, creating their own utensil chaos. Don't be that person who confuses everyone at the table, including yourself. Continental style actually makes more sense when you think about it. You cut with fork in left, knife in right, then eat immediately without the fork switching dance. It's efficient. The food stays warm, your rhythm stays smooth. Plus you look like you know what you're doing instead of playing hot potato with your utensils. But here's what really matters more than which style you choose: what you do when you're not actively cutting or eating. This is where most people mess up spectacularly. Your utensils should never, and I mean never, touch the table once you've started using them. Not even for a second while you tell that hilarious story about your weekend. When you pause to talk, drink, or just take a breath, place both utensils on your plate, not leaning against it like they're taking a nap, not balanced precariously on the edge ready to crash to the floor, fully on the plate, handles pointing toward the bottom right if you want to get technical about it. Then there's the talking with utensils problem. You know, the person who waves their fork around like a conductor leading an orchestra while explaining their latest dating disaster. Don't be that person. Put your utensils down when you want to make a point. Your story will be just as compelling without the silverware choreography, and you won't accidentally fling food across the table for emphasis. Let's not forget the cutting technique that separates the pros from the amateurs. Cut one piece at a time, not your entire steak into bite-sized cubes like you're meal prepping for the week. This isn't a race to see who can create the most uniform food pieces. Each cut should be deliberate, clean, and only what you need for your next bite. The pressure you use matters too. You're cutting food, not performing surgery or building furniture. Light, controlled movements work better than aggressive sawing that makes the whole table shake. Your neighbors don't need to know you're working hard for that piece of chicken. Here's a detail most people miss: the angle of your utensils while cutting. Keep your knife blade slightly angled toward the plate, not straight up and down like you're trying to stab something into submission. This creates cleaner cuts and prevents your food from sliding around like it's trying to escape. When you're finished eating, your utensils become communication tools. Placing them parallel to each other on your plate, handles pointing to 4 o'clock, signals you're done. This isn't just fancy restaurant code, it's practical. Servers can clear your plate without asking if you're still working on it, and you avoid the awkward "are you finished" conversation while your mouth is full. The mistake everyone makes: leaving utensils scattered on the plate like they fell from a great height, or worse, leaving them crossed like an X, which in some places means you're still eating. Mixed signals lead to confusion, and confusion leads to servers hovering around your table unsure whether to clear your plate or leave you alone. Never use your personal utensils for communal dishes either. That serving spoon exists for a reason, and it's not decorative. Your fork that's been in your mouth shouldn't go anywhere near the shared appetizer. no matter how convenient it seems. But here's what happens when you nail the utensil game. You eat more comfortably, look more confident, and actually enjoy your food instead of fighting with your tools. It's like the difference between struggling with chopsticks and using them naturally. Suddenly the meal becomes about the food, not the mechanics. Mastering your utensils sets you up perfectly for the next challenge, actually getting food from the serving dishes to your plate without creating a mess or breaking every rule of communal dining. You've mastered your utensils, but here's where most people mess up completely. The moment someone asks you to pass the salt, you're being tested. And trust me, there are unspoken rules about sharing food at the table that can make or break your reputation faster than you can say, "Please pass the potatoes." First rule that'll save you from looking like an amateur: always pass food to the right. Always. This isn't some random tradition. It creates a smooth flow around the table. When everyone follows the same direction, you avoid that awkward dance where two people reach across each other. Think of it like traffic laws. Sure, you could drive on any side of the road, but we all agree on one direction to avoid chaos. But here's the weird part: when someone asks for salt, you pass both salt and pepper together, even if they only asked for salt, even if the pepper shaker is heavy and annoying to grab. This might seem pointless, but these seasonings are like dance partners. They're always supposed to travel together. Separating them creates confusion for the next person who needs both. Now, before you start serving yourself from any shared dish, offer it to the person sitting next to you first. This small gesture shows you're thinking about others before yourself. It's not about being a pushover, it's about demonstrating class. The person might decline, but you've just scored major points for thoughtfulness. Then there's the golden rule about communal dishes that'll horrify your grandmother if you break it. Never, and I mean never, use your personal utensils to serve from shared plates or bowls. Your fork has been in your mouth. That spoon touched your lips. Using them in communal food is like double dipping on steroids. Each shared dish should have its own serving utensils, and if they're missing, ask for them rather than contaminating everyone's meal. Speaking of serving, here's something restaurants know but most home diners don't. Plates are served from the left side and removed from the right. This system prevents servers from bumping into each other and creates predictable movement around the table. At formal dinners, knowing this helps you anticipate when to lean slightly away so service flows smoothly. You'll look like you've been dining at fancy places your whole life. Let's not forget the breadbasket situation that trips up even experienced diners. When bread arrives, don't immediately grab a piece and start munching. Pass the entire basket around the table first, then take your piece when it comes back to you. This prevents the awkward moment where half the table is still waiting while you're already buttering your second roll. Well, what about those massive platters that require two hands to pass safely? Don't attempt to send a heavy serving dish around the table like it's a lightweight salt shaker. Instead, hold the platter steady while the person next to you serves themselves, then they hold it for the next person. This tag team approach prevents dropped food and stained tablecloths. Makes sense, right? And the weird part is how many people panic when they can't reach something across the table. Never lean across other diners or stretch over dishes to grab what you need. Simply ask the person closest to the item to pass it to you. "Could you please pass the butter?" Works much better than contorting yourself into a pretzel and potentially knocking over someone's wine glass. But why does proper passing matter so much? Because dining is a group activity, and these rules ensure everyone feels included and comfortable. When you hog the bread basket or use your germy fork in the shared salad, you're essentially telling everyone else that your convenience matters more than their experience. Here's something most etiquette books won't tell you. If you're at a restaurant and accidentally grab the serving spoon with your dominant hand while holding your personal utensils, don't try to juggle everything. Set your personal utensils down on your plate first, then handle the serving pieces. This prevents the dreaded utensil mix-up that makes everyone at the table cringe internally. The temperature factor plays a role too. Hot dishes should move around the table quickly so everyone gets their food while it's still warm. Don't hold on to that steaming casserole dish while you decide how much you want. Serve yourself efficiently and keep it moving. Your fellow diners will appreciate getting their food at the proper temperature. Then there is the question of seconds. Always wait until everyone has been served their first portion before taking additional helpings. This seems obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people pile on seconds while others are still waiting for their initial serving. Patience here shows real class and consideration. These serving and passing techniques might seem like small details, but they're the foundation of gracious dining. Master these basics, and you're ready to tackle the more complex challenges that await. Because once you can handle sharing food properly, you'll need to know how to actually eat some of the trickier items that might end up on your plate. You've navigated the social minefield of passing dishes correctly, but now comes the moment that separates dining rookies from seasoned professionals: meat and pasta. These two food categories have probably caused more silent judgment at dinner tables than any political conversation ever could. Let's start with meat. Because frankly, watching someone hack away at their steak like they're chopping firewood makes everyone uncomfortable. The cardinal rule: cut only one piece at a time. That's it. Not 3 pieces ahead of schedule, not half the steak in preparation for efficient eating. One piece, eat it, then cut the next one. This keeps your food warm and prevents your plate from looking like a crime scene. Well, there's more to the cutting technique than just portion control. Hold your elbows close to your sides when cutting. Picture this: your arms should move like you're playing a violin, not like you're rowing a boat. Wide elbows bump into fellow diners and scream. I learned my table manners in a cafeteria. Keep those elbows tucked, and suddenly you look like someone who belongs at a respectable dinner table. The knife and fork dance varies depending on which side of the Atlantic taught you manners. Continental style means fork stays in your left hand, knife in your right, throughout the entire process. Americans love their utensil switching routine: cut with fork in left hand, then switch the fork to the right hand for eating. Both methods work perfectly fine, but pick one and stick with it. Switching between styles mid-meal confuses everyone, including yourself. Then there's the eternal question: what about those tiny stubborn pieces of meat that seem impossible to spear with a fork? Never, and this bears repeating, never use your knife to push food onto your fork. The proper technique involves using a piece of bread or another bite of food as your gentle nudging assistant. Think of it as teamwork on your plate. But why does pasta cause even more anxiety than meat? Because long noodles have a mind of their own, and seem designed to embarrass anyone who dares to eat them in public. The twirling technique separates confident diners from those who order only short pasta shapes to avoid the challenge. Here's the method that actually works: place your fork in the pasta, and find a small portion of noodles. Position the fork against the edge of your plate, or if available, use a spoon as your twirling assistant. Roll the fork slowly, allowing the pasta to wrap around the tines. The goal is a neat, compact bundle that fits comfortably in your mouth. And the weird part is how many people get this completely wrong. They gather half the plate's worth of spaghetti onto their fork, creating a nest so large it requires unhinging their jaw like a snake. Small portions, people. Small portions create manageable bites and preserve your dignity. Never, under any circumstances, should you bite off trailing pasta ends and let them fall back to your plate. This isn't a cartoon where dangling spaghetti looks charming. If you can't fit the entire twirled portion in your mouth, you've gathered too much pasta. Start over with a smaller amount. Let's not forget the slurping situation, that satisfying slurp that works perfectly fine when eating ramen alone in your apartment becomes absolutely unacceptable in polite company. Silent pasta consumption requires patience and practice, but your fellow diners will appreciate the effort. Makes sense, right? The spoon controversy deserves attention too. Some cultures embrace the spoon and fork partnership for pasta eating, while others consider it unnecessary or even childish. When in doubt, observe your dining companions or ask discreetly. Better to ask than to commit a cultural pasta faux pas. At formal dinners, the rules become even more stringent. Foods that might normally qualify as finger foods suddenly require utensils. That small piece of chicken. Use your fork and knife. The dinner roll that's perfectly manageable by hand. Still acceptable to tear by hand, but be extra mindful of crumbs and butter etiquette. The temperature factor plays a crucial role too. Hot food stays hot when you cut and eat methodically rather than preparing multiple pieces in advance. Cold pasta tastes significantly worse than hot pasta, so efficient twirling techniques keep your meal enjoyable rather than just socially acceptable. Professional tip: practice these techniques at home before attempting them at important dinners. Muscle memory develops quickly with pasta twirling and proper cutting techniques. Your future self will thank you when you're confidently navigating a business dinner instead of struggling with rebellious linguine. Mastering meat and pasta gives you confidence with the most challenging main courses. But what happens when your plate includes those mysterious garnishes and special items that leave everyone guessing about proper etiquette? You've mastered the main course, but now comes the tricky stuff. Those little extras on your plate aren't just decoration. They're actually meant to be eaten. Well, most of them anyway. Edible garnishes are fair game if they're sitting on your plate. That sprig of parsley, go for it. The carved radish flower, absolutely. But here's where people mess up. They assume everything green is just for show. Wrong. If it's on your plate and looks like food, it probably is food. The chef didn't spend time arranging inedible items just to confuse you. Lemon wedges deserve special attention, because they're notorious troublemakers. You know what I'm talking about. That moment when someone squeezes a lemon and accidentally creates a citrus geyser that hits everyone within a 3-foot radius. Here's the trick. Cup your other hand around the lemon wedge while squeezing. This creates a barrier that catches any rebellious squirts. Your table mates will thank you for not giving them an unexpected facial. Then there's the great French fry dilemma. Should you use your hands or utensils? Psst. The answer depends on what everyone else is eating. If you're at a casual burger joint, fingers are fine. But if French fries show up at a formal dinner where everything else requires cutlery, follow suit. Use your fork and knife. It might feel weird at first, but it's better than being the only person eating with their hands while everyone else maintains perfect form. Ice cubes present another interesting challenge. They're sitting right there in your glass, looking all crunchy and tempting, but resist the urge. Crunching ice at the dinner table sounds like a construction site in your mouth. Plus it can damage your teeth. Leave the ice where it belongs, melting quietly in your glass. Now let's talk about the stuff that fights back. Pits and bones have a way of showing up when you least expect them. Olives with pits, cherries in your dessert, or that sneaky bone in your fish. The key is handling these obstacles with grace and minimal drama. For small pits like olive pits or cherry stones, use the same utensil you use to put the food in your mouth. If you ate the olive with a fork, use the fork to discreetly remove the pit. Place it quietly on the edge of your plate. Don't spit it into your napkin or, heaven forbid, into your hand for everyone to see. Fish bones require more finesse. When you encounter one, don't panic or make a big announcement. Simply remove it with your fork and place it on your plate. If it's really stubborn, you can use your fingers, but be subtle about it. The goal is to handle the situation without drawing attention to yourself or disrupting the conversation. Larger bones like those in chicken or lamb can be trickier. At formal dinners, you'll need to work around them with your knife and fork. Cut the meat away from the bone rather than picking up the bone itself. Save the caveman approach for backyard barbecues. But what about those gorgeous garnishes that look too pretty to eat? Here's a secret from restaurant insiders. If it's colorful, artistic, and sitting on your plate, it's probably meant to be consumed. Those purple flowers on your salad, edible. The fancy microgreens scattered around your entree, totally edible. The only things you should avoid are obvious non-food items like decorative picks or plastic elements. Some garnishes actually enhance the flavor of your dish. That sprig of rosemary isn't just pretty, it's aromatic and adds to the overall experience. Those thin slices of apple on your pork dish, they complement the meat perfectly. Don't let them go to waste just because they look too fancy to eat. The weird part is how many people miss out on these flavor enhancers because they think garnishes are just for show. Restaurants spend money on edible decorations specifically because they want you to eat them. They're part of the complete dish, not just pretty accessories. Here's where it gets interesting though. Cultural differences play a huge role in what's considered appropriate. In some cultures, leaving food on your plate is insulting. In others, cleaning your plate completely suggests you weren't given enough food. When in doubt, follow your host's lead or ask discreetly. The bottom line with special items and garnishes is simple. When something edible appears on your plate, treat it as part of the meal. Handle obstacles like pits and bones with quiet confidence. Keep your movements small and deliberate. Nobody should have to watch you wrestle with your food. These skills become especially important when you're holding a glass in your hand, because drinking at the table involves its own set of rules that can make or break your dining reputation. Drinking properly at a dinner table isn't just about staying hydrated, it's about showing respect, avoiding embarrassing sounds, and navigating the social complexities that come with every sip. The way you handle your glass can either elevate your presence or make you the person everyone remembers for all the wrong reasons. First things first, silence is golden when it comes to drinking. No slurping, no gulping, no dramatic sounds after taking a drink. Your beverage consumption should be practically invisible to others at the table. Think of it as drinking in stealth mode. The louder you are, the more attention you draw to something that should be automatic and graceful. Wine glasses present their own challenge. Always hold wine glasses by the stem, never by the bowl. This isn't some fancy rule created to make dining more complicated. There's actual science behind it. Your warm hands will change the temperature of the wine, and nobody wants to see your fingerprints all over the glass. Plus, it looks more sophisticated. Red wine, white wine, champagne, doesn't matter. Stem holding is universal, but here's something most people don't realize about wine etiquette. You don't have to finish every glass poured for you. Seriously, the wine police won't arrest you for leaving half a glass untouched. Sometimes the host keeps pouring throughout the meal, and trying to keep up can leave you wobbly before dessert arrives. Pace yourself, and don't feel pressured to drain every drop. Timing your drinks matters more than you might think. Never take a sip while you have food in your mouth. This sounds obvious, but watch people eat sometime. They do it constantly. Chew, swallow, then drink. The reverse works too. Drink, swallow, then take your next bite. Your mouth should be clear before any liquid enters. Then there's the ice situation that confuses everyone. Those ice cubes floating in your water glass. They stay there. Don't crunch them. Don't fish them out. Don't use your straw to play hockey with them. Ice is meant to keep your drink cold, not provide entertainment. If you're genuinely thirsty, and the ice is getting in your way, tilt the glass slightly, so the liquid flows around it. Toasting brings its own set of rules that can trip up even experienced diners. Wait for the host to initiate any toasts. Don't jump the gun and raise your glass randomly during the meal. When a toast does happen, put down your utensils, pick up your glass and make eye contact with others at the table. You don't have to drink if it's alcohol, and you don't drink alcohol, but you should still participate in the gesture by raising your glass. The weird part about toasting: never toast with an empty glass or with water at formal events. It's considered bad luck in many cultures. If your glass is empty, either get it refilled or politely raise it without drinking. Water toasts are generally avoided at formal dinners, because they're associated with wishing someone ill fortune. Seems dramatic, but traditions stick around for a reason. Coffee and tea service often happens at the end of meals, and this is where things get interesting. If someone offers to pour for you, accept graciously even if you only want half a cup. You can always leave it unfinished. When stirring sugar or cream into hot beverages, do it quietly. Metal spoons hitting ceramic cups create that annoying clinking sound that cuts through dinner conversation. Hot beverages also require patience. Don't blow on your coffee or tea to cool it down. Wait for it to reach a comfortable temperature naturally. Blowing on drinks looks childish, and can send droplets flying toward other people's food. Not exactly the impression you want to make during a business dinner. Glass placement on the table follows specific rules too. Your glasses should stay above your knives on the right side of your place setting. Don't move them around, or create your own drink station. When you're not actively drinking, the glass goes back to its designated spot. This keeps the table organized and prevents accidental spills when people reach for serving dishes. Multiple glasses can appear at formal dinners. Water, white wine, red wine, maybe champagne. Use the appropriate glass for each beverage, and don't consolidate drinks into one glass to save space. Each glass serves a purpose, and has been chosen specifically for what it contains. The key to drinking gracefully is making it look effortless while following these guidelines. Practice holding wine glasses properly at home. Pay attention to how quietly you can drink. Master the art of timing your sips between bites. Your drinking habits reveal more about your social awareness than you might expect. Handle them well, and you'll glide through any dinner situation with confidence. But even perfect drink etiquette won't save you when accidents happen at the table. Everyone makes mistakes at the dinner table. Even people who've attended fancy dinners their whole lives drop forks, spill wine, or accidentally knock over a water glass. The difference between looking clumsy and looking graceful isn't avoiding mishaps entirely, it's how you handle them when they happen. When you spill something on the table, your first instinct might be to panic or start apologizing profusely. Don't do either. Instead, calmly reach for your napkin and quietly clean up what you can. A simple "excuse me" is all the verbal acknowledgement needed. Most spills are minor and happen to everyone, so drawing excessive attention to the situation makes things more awkward for everyone at the table. Here's what many people get wrong about spills: they try to clean everything themselves. If you've knocked over a full glass of red wine or dropped an entire plate of pasta, signal discreetly to the waitstaff. A small hand gesture or quiet "excuse me" to a nearby server works perfectly. They're trained to handle these situations quickly and efficiently. and they'd much rather clean up properly than watch you struggle with a tiny napkin against a major mess. The weird part is that dropped utensils cause more embarrassment than actual spills for most people. Your fork hits the floor with that distinctive clatter, and suddenly everyone's looking your way. Never, and this is important, never reach under the table to retrieve it yourself. You'll look ridiculous crawling around under there, and you might bump into other diners' legs or bags. Simply leave it where it fell, and quietly ask your server for a replacement when they pass by. Then there's the nightmare scenario. Many people worry about getting food stuck in your teeth right in the middle of an important conversation. You can feel it there, but you can't exactly start picking at your teeth with your finger in front of everyone. The solution is surprisingly simple. Excuse yourself to the restroom where you can handle the situation privately. A quick "please excuse me for a moment" works perfectly, and no one will think twice about it. Let's not forget about the coughing fit that strikes right after you've taken a bite of something particularly spicy or dry. Your eyes start watering, and you're trying desperately not to spray food everywhere. Cover your mouth with your napkin, turn your head slightly away from the table, and let it happen. Don't try to suppress a genuine cough that usually makes things worse and can actually be dangerous. Once you've recovered, a simple "excuse me" is sufficient. But why do people make such a big deal out of these minor incidents? Most dinner companions are focused on their own meals and conversations. They're not sitting there waiting for you to mess up so they can judge you. In fact, handling small mishaps with grace and composure actually makes you look more sophisticated, not less. The key principle here is proportional response. Small problem, small reaction. Don't turn a minor spill into dinner theater by jumping up, grabbing multiple napkins, and apologizing to everyone within earshot. Similarly, don't ignore a significant mess and hope it goes away on its own. Match your response to the actual size of the problem. What about when you accidentally use someone else's bread plate or drink from their water glass? This happens more often than you'd think, especially at tables with elaborate place settings. If you notice immediately, a quiet "I'm sorry, I believe I used your plate by mistake" to the person beside you is appropriate. If you don't realize until later, just leave it alone. Making a big announcement about mix-ups that have already happened just draws unnecessary attention to the situation. Temperature mishaps present their own challenges. You bite into something that's much hotter than expected, and your mouth is on fire. Don't spit it out or start frantically fanning your mouth with your hands. Swallow if you can, or discreetly remove it to your napkin if you absolutely must. Take a sip of water and continue on. Everyone has experienced food that was too hot, so there's no need to make a production out of it. The most important rule for handling any dining mishap is this: keep your composure and move on quickly. Don't let a minor incident derail the entire meal or conversation. People remember how you handled the situation far more than they remember the mistake itself. Someone who stays calm and deals with problems efficiently appears confident and socially skilled. Makes sense, right? Mistakes happen to everyone, but not everyone knows how to recover gracefully. Master these recovery techniques, and you'll handle any dining situation with confidence. Speaking of confidence, there's one more crucial skill that separates amateur diners from true professionals: knowing how to end the meal properly and leave the right impression on everyone at the table. You've made it through the entire meal without major disasters. Well done. But here's where most people mess up. They think the hard part is over. Wrong. How you end a meal can make or break the entire dining experience. The last few minutes at the table are like the final notes of a symphony. Hit them right, and people remember you fondly. Fumble them, and all your earlier efforts go down the drain. The most crucial signal you need to master: telling everyone you're finished eating. This isn't about pushing your plate away or dramatically throwing down your napkin. It's about utensil placement. When you're done, place your fork and knife together on your plate, both pointing toward 4 o'clock. Think of it like parking your car. There's a proper way that shows you're civilized. But here's what's fascinating. This signal works internationally. Whether you're in Tokyo, Paris, or Kansas City, servers recognize this universal "I'm done" message. Keep the utensils parallel to each other, handles pointing to the lower right of your plate. Never cross them or leave them hanging off the edges like some kind of dining disaster. Then there's the napkin situation. Remember how carefully you placed it on your lap at the beginning. The ending requires similar finesse. Don't fold it into perfect creases like you're competing in an origami contest. That suggests the napkin is unused, which makes the staff feel like they didn't provide good service. Instead, loosely gather it, wrinkles and all, and place it to the right of your plate. This shows you actually used it, which is perfectly normal and expected. Timing becomes everything here. Don't rush this process the moment you swallow your last bite. Wait for others to finish, or at least show signs they're winding down. Racing to signal you're done while others are still eating sends a message that you're bored or eager to escape. Not exactly the impression you want to leave. Let's not forget the power of genuine appreciation. Thanking your host isn't just polite, it's strategic. But here's the catch. Your thanks need to feel authentic, not like a rehearsed speech. Find something specific to compliment. Maybe the seasoning on the fish was perfect, or the wine pairing surprised you. Generic praise like everything was nice lands flat, and the weird part is, most people thank the wrong person at the wrong time. If you're at a restaurant, thank your host, not just the server. If you're at someone's home, thank them directly before leaving the table, not while you're putting on your coat by the door. The timing shows you're genuinely focused on them, not just checking off a social obligation. Here's where it gets interesting. The thank you note. Yes, people still write them. Well, smart people do. A handwritten note arriving a day or two after a dinner makes you unforgettable. Not an email, not a text. Actual paper with actual ink. Sounds old-fashioned. Exactly. That's why it works so brilliantly. The note doesn't need to be lengthy. 3 sentences work perfectly. Thank them for their hospitality, mention something specific you enjoyed, and express interest in seeing them again. Takes 5 minutes to write, but the impact lasts for months. Your host will probably show it to other people, which means your reputation spreads without you even trying. But what about business dinners? The stakes get higher there. Your exit strategy needs to account for professional dynamics. If you're dining with a potential client, let them signal when they're ready to wrap up. If you're the senior person at the table, you set the pace. Reading these social cues separates amateurs from professionals. There's also the question of who stands first. Generally wait for your host to make the initial move. Standing abruptly while others are still settling in can create awkward momentum where everyone feels pressured to leave before they're ready. Patience here pays dividends in terms of how relaxed and confident you appear. The payment situation requires delicate handling too. If someone else is covering the bill, don't make a big show of offering to pay when you know they'll refuse. A simple thank you so much for dinner acknowledges their generosity without creating fake drama. However, do offer to cover the tip if it feels appropriate. This gesture often gets appreciated without being expected. One final detail that separates the pros from the amateurs. Clean up your immediate area subtly. Not like you're bussing tables, but don't leave a disaster zone either. Push your chair back in, don't leave personal items scattered around, and avoid creating extra work for the staff. Your graceful exit becomes the lasting impression. People forget what you wore or what you ordered, but they remember how you made them feel during those final moments. Master this, and you'll find yourself getting invited back. Mess it up, and well, there might not be a next time.